So, good day everyone and welcome. So the topic overall for this week is to take a good look at dosa, D-O-S-A, a Pali word that I think today I'll translate a little differently than hatred or hostility, but as ill will. And that translation works well as a contrast or as a partner in a sense to goodwill. And it's easy to set up these in opposition to each other and to feel like it should be either one or the other. But one of the wonderful things about practice is the way we can bring things together. And nothing's excluded. Everything has a certain kind of place in the field of awareness. And learning what that place is part of the art of mindfulness, of practice. And one of the ways of holding these together is when there is ill will, whether it's to another person or to oneself or some particular aspect of our experience, even in meditation, some ill will to the meditation cushion we're sitting on because it's too hard or to anything, that to bring it together like left and right hand coming together to hold each other. Bring them together of goodwill together with ill will. Meet the ill will with goodwill. To sit in a field of certain generosity of heart that is willing to gaze upon all things kindly, including our unkindness, including the ways in which we might have ill will, cynicism maybe even, or snideness, or a certain kind of judgmentalism, which is kind of like stabbing at people or ourselves. But instead to meet ill will with goodwill. It doesn't mean condoning it. It doesn't mean, encouraging it to continue and do what it wants to do. But it is a way of not being in opposition with it that allows the ill will that we carry to be held in a field, in a embrace that allows something in the ill will to relax. Ill will, hostility, hatred does represent tension, contraction, tightness, a certain kind of forcefulness, sometimes a certain kind of assertion of power. And goodwill is a different kind of power that's never assertive. But many people say that love is always more powerful than hate. And so as we sit here today, you might consider what it'd be like to be mindful, to be present for your breathing, for your body, for your experience, for your emotions, and whatever ill will might arise. What would it be like if it's met or held or gazed upon with goodwill, with kindness or friendliness or a generosity of heart that doesn't condemn, but also doesn't condone, and but allows something deep over time, something deep inside to relax. That would be good to relax. So, assuming a meditation posture, and perhaps for this sitting, maybe some care could be given to a posture that expresses a goodwill to your body, that's caring for your body, adjusting your legs, your arms, your torso, your head, to kind of all the little subtle and big ways in which you can kind of care for it and put it into a posture that is, is supportive and helpful for you to meditate with goodwill. Some people, when they want to evoke goodwill, will put their hand over their hearts. Somehow the human touch, contact, and to feel the warmth that comes in that space of contact. And if there's warmth there, to allow it to kind of settle in, be received by the heart area. And to gently close your eyes. And to maybe ever so slightly, just right for you, take some deeper breaths that express goodwill to yourself, care. So this life-giving air that you take in is done in a way that feels caring or nourishing. In a way of caring for yourself as you exhale, to relax your body, soften, as settling in and grounding here in this body. And letting your breathing return to normal. Is it possible to establish an attitude of goodwill, of kindness, metta, as the attitude that carries or supports the meditation today? Perhaps it's experienced as a kind of tenderness, a warmth, a caring, a well-wishing. And to have, with that attitude, to settle into the experience of the body breathing, relaxing and softening. And if as you're sitting with your breathing, something that arises that's challenging for you or difficult, see if you can meet it or be aware of it with goodwill. Maybe with the idea that this is difficult and I wish this part of me, I wish this, whatever it is, I do wish it to be well. I do wish that it knows that it's cared for. And in a world where ill will is so common, goodwill can be revolutionary. It even changes the paradigm. And perhaps as we sit here now, to let the paradigm be a simple, gentle goodwill. Breathing in and breathing out. Settling into your breathing, to the present moment. If you are wandering off in thought, is there something underneath or part of the thinking that you can touch with kindness, with goodwill, and then relax, let go of your thinking. And then as we come to the end of the sitting, we do a variation of a common Buddhist practice, which is to dedicate the merit of our practice, dedicate the benefits that we've had for practicing for the welfare of others. And there's a kind of a wonderful dynamic with dedication of merit, is to offer up the benefits we received for others, for the whole world, creates more merit. We benefit from doing so. If we dedicate our practice for the welfare and happiness of others, and appreciate that the deepest or the fullest welfare and happiness that people can experience is a freedom from attachments, freedom from greed, hatred, and delusion. And so when we wish even difficult people in our lives that they be happy and safe and peaceful and free, if that actually is the case, we benefit because they'll be in the world without greed, hatred, and delusion. It's this wonderful chemistry or dynamic of goodwill, generosity. It's healthy for all of us in all directions to practice lots of it. So now as we end this sitting, may whatever benefit that has come from this practice today, may we find ways in which to enact it, to express it for the happiness of others, for the safety of others, for the peace of others, and for their freedom. May all beings be happy. May all beings be free. Oh, sorry about that. I kept the mic on while I was drinking and you had to hear the swallowing. So, so So the topic this week is a dosa that I've been translating as hatred or hostility. It's also translated as ill will, which has the benefit of feeling like it can include a wider range, including things that are even very mild, and there can be feeling there's a little bit of ill will in it, and that you might not identify as having hatred or hostility. So it might be as simple as Um, you know, someone crowds you a little bit too much in the supermarket line. Maybe instead of 6 feet away, they stand 4 feet away, and it's far enough you don't feel like you can say something, but you really don't like it, and you feel this kind of little ill will, like a little to that person. But is that necessary to have the ill will? And it's not hatred, it's not hostility, but it is kind of an unkind attitude. So we will. So today the topic is how to practice with ill will, and this is a big topic, practicing with it, and I want to kind of maybe try to do it from the kind of a wide perspective first, and then bring it in closer and closer to the mindfulness practice with it. And a wider perspective of it is that if you want to practice with ill will, if you want to get a handle on ill will that you have and become wise about it, and even become free um, of it, from it, even if it remains, there's a kind of freedom you can find around it, so you're not caught in its grip. One of the things to do is to reflect on it for a while. Think about it, contemplate, talk to friends about it, and to see if you can begin understanding what your relationship to it is. What attitude do you have towards ill will? Do you have ill will towards it? Ill will? Do you tend to regularly justify it and hold on to it? And do you tend to feel shame because you have it? Do you tend to ignore it and deny it and push it away? All those are kind of common enough attitudes that people can have towards ill will that they have. And there's lots of other things, but what is that relationship you have? What's the attitude? And what are your beliefs about it? Do you believe that it's always wrong? Do you believe it's always, for you, it's always justified? And that's a tricky one because in some ways, maybe it is justified given how difficult the experiences are that are happening to you and what people are doing. But maybe it's easy to justify, but it's not really still the most strategic way of living your life in the face of challenges. Maybe there are better ways. And so anyway, to look at the attitude we have and the relationship, and then to consider also if you act on the ill will, what happens? What's the consequences of that? Are the consequences in the world really beneficial or not? And maybe you sometimes expressing strong ill will to someone, it can be strategic in the moment to get what you want, but maybe it doesn't really set up conditions for the long term that are very healthy or useful. And so, what are the dangers associated with ill will? And and then what happens? What's it like for you when you walk around with ill will? And what are the things that come with it? So anyway, so there's all these questions, and to live a reflective, contemplative life, and to kind of question it and consider it. And it's often helpful to do that with a friend, a wise friend, and even sometimes to engage your friend and say, can you ask me? I'd like to explore ill will and my relationship to it. Would you be willing to just kind of be with me as I explore it, maybe ask me questions and help out? The benefit of that kind of reflection is when you sit down to meditate, you're wiser about the ill will. You can recognize some of the attitudes that come up, some of the common strategies you have in relationship, beliefs you have in relationship to ill will, that interfere with the ability to really be present for it. Another thing that can be helpful even before you meditate or during meditation is to have some familiarity with metta, some familiarity with some of the emotions of kindness and compassion and care that can live inside of us, and to consider, and this can be reflective also, maybe conversation with friends, what is the relationship with ill will, goodwill to ill will, and How is there appropriate ways to bring goodwill to ill will and have goodwill meet ill will, uh, or to touch ill will? And I use those words carefully, meet and touch ill will, because it's different than fixing and getting rid of. And I've had, ill will and tried to use my practice to kind of blast it out of existence. It was kind of an ill will to ill will. And but to touch it. And so to kind of begin exploring this world of ours in relationship to our to goodwill, and how do we, what is goodwill, and where does that live in our lives, so this is a reflective life, a contemplative life that lets things deepen and fill out for us. So when we come to meditate, for example, that's in the background. That's there as a foundation. That's a support for the mindfulness practice itself. So in mindfulness practice, whether it's on the cushion, it's meditation, or in regular life, mindfulness practice entails, in a sense, stopping and looking. So we have ill will. We want to stop and take a good look. And the stopping means we don't just barrel ahead, be busy in our life, but if the situation allows it, to maybe even pause, and so that you really recognize, this is what's happening now. Sometimes there can be a kind of a general, simple understanding that there's ill will there, but and then we kind of some people might be content. Well, that's kind of mindfulness, but it's not really stopping and pausing and really taking an honest, good look and saying, this is what's happening. There's ill will here. And then having stopped to take a real look at it, take the time to familiarize yourself with it, to be in the present moment with the experience, which is what the seeing is, and begin seeing it more fully with eyes that maybe have a little goodwill, or eyes that are not carrying with it all our attitudes that we have about it that make it so much complicated. But to stop and look at the ill will with eyes that are simple, present, without hostility, without condoning it, without justifying it, without feeling shame about it or critical about it, just to kind of look at it just for itself, for what it is, as if ill will, there's a rightness, appropriateness to really stop and take a look at the experience of ill will in and of itself, as if it has permission to be there. But because you've stopped, there's no danger that you're going to act on it in harmful ways. You're just going to look at it and really get to know it. And one of the ways with many things in meditation, is to feel it in your body. How is it experienced? Where is the center of it? Where is it expressed most in the body? Where's the tension? Where's the heat? Where's the pressure? Where's the place that wants to do something and act? And to feel it in the body. And one of the advantages of really feeling it in the body is not a story. And one of the things that fuels ill will is a story-making mind. She said, he said, they said, and so instead of kind of continuing with the stories and the conversations, we're kind of dropping in and letting the body be the place that we feel what's actually happening. There's something very significant about the feeling ill will in the body, is that the body has an ability to process difficult emotions that's a very different way than the cognitive mind, the mind that thinks about things and analyzes things and imagines things. The body has a tremendous healing power, and to drop down and feel the body is part of this healing potential we have. And one way that healing happens is that just as soon as you're feeling it in your body, you can feel the tensions, and those tensions can begin to melt away. And that changes the whole relationship to ill will, because some of the fuel, power that ill will has comes from the tension we hold in our body, or in our mind, in our hearts. And so it might also be useful to notice what other emotions come along with ill will. There might be underlying emotions that are really ill will is just a symptom of deeper emotions. There might be fear, there might be hurt. Um, there might also be deep inside a sense of conceit, a sense of self that we're contracted around. And to drop in and start feeling carefully those underlying attitudes, feelings, emotions, contractions, sense of self, sometimes is much more useful than just paying attention to the ill will. And I find it very helpful sometimes to think of ill will as just a messenger. Don't kill the messenger. What's the message? What's going on more deeply? And then to feel and be mindful of that. It's not an analysis, but it's feeling our way into what's deeper, what's really going on here. And then sometimes with ill will, there is a mindfulness of the stories we do, the beliefs we have. And the fascinating thing there is to see them just as thoughts, to be able to be quiet, still enough, to have stopped enough, just to observe a belief come up, a thought there, without believing it, without picking it up or being involved. And almost like you step back and you watch, maybe if you could watch a thought bubble rise above the head of a friend, maybe, it's like you're a little bit, or a stranger, you're a little bit detached, you're a little bit removed, you're not entangled with it. So sometimes we kind of step back and watch the thoughts, the story-making mind, that sometimes is so important for perpetuating the ill will. And then always finding some way to maybe relax, to find the places where there's tension, and if it's easy enough to relax it and settle. So to practice with it, to be present for it, to be mindful of it, and all along, if you have some interest and value in goodwill, to do this whole practice of practicing with ill will, with an attitude of goodwill. That you're doing this, even though it's difficult, you're doing it for your own welfare and happiness, for the long-term happiness. It might be difficult in the moment, but the more familiarity and the more wisdom and the more capacity we have to be mindful and present with ill will, the more that will slowly begin to build and create more and more a greater and greater wise way of living with it, until ill will, you'll discover one day, has less and less hold on you, less and less power over you. It might still arise, but instead of being alarmed or going along with it, you say, oh, there's my old friend, ill will. It's okay. You can kind of just stay there, and we're not going to get involved with that. And later we'll practice with you, or we'll sit down. So in these few minutes that I have, that's what I have to say about practicing with ill will. And it's a well worthwhile. I think it's part of a responsible life, is to really learn the art, the ability to be mindful of ill will, so that it doesn't get the upper hand, and so we don't cause harm in this world. So thank you, and so one of the things you might think of doing in practicing with ill will, even the slightest for this next day, is to maybe see in what way does ill will contract you into yourself, so that the sense of self or conceit or something is there, is highlighted, or to what degree does ill will create an unhealthy separation from other people. And both directions are possible. You can see the difficulty in yourself to have ill will, and you see the difficulty it creates socially. So you might see how that operates. Thank you very much.